Good evening, everyone. Yang Yan Zhao back again. We have a special guest hanging out in the green room tonight. But to start things off, little reminder, the site for Empire of the Undying Sun is live. The Kickstarter will go live in October. And go ahead, go to empireoftheundyingsun.com, sign up on there to get notifications for when the campaign goes live. And if you sign up to be a VIP for only $3, you will get the adventure gaming module Fairy Hill, written by Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver. You can only get that as a VIP member. And then also we have some other fine gifts. You will get tokens for all the characters in Empire of the Undying Sun, and you will get a poster, which has unreleased art. So go ahead and do that. And this week, tomorrow, I have Buzz Acevedo coming on. He's going to talk about his new comic. And then next week, Tuesday, I've got Chubby Funster. He'll be talking about his new Kickstarter for, I have not taken a look, but it is, I believe, an OSR gaming project. But tonight, we have a man hailing from the New York City area, a man who has braved death every day of his life, I assume, to just getting groceries due to where he lives. He is a phenomenal writer, and he is responsible for the phenomena known as Phenomenova.
How's it
Vaughn
going?
Coleman.
Appreciate that. Yeah, the rumors are greatly exaggerated. I don't struggle too much to get groceries, although I should play that up. Makes me seem badass. But
is it? I am kind of curious. Normally, I wouldn't start a comic interview with this, but since that just kind of came up, do you feel New York City's bad? Like kind of like, I got to watch myself, or?
So, I mean, I don't live there, but I was just there for my birthday. I guess it would depend on the area and whatever, but it's not like, no, you just go there and you just hang out. I don't think it's, you're not really in any danger for just hanging out there.
Okay. I was just wondering because my cousin lives, I think he's in Long Island, but he's got to go into the city for work every day. And he was in at Christmas, and I was saying, like, yeah, it seems like, the subways and stuff are pretty dangerous. And he's like, no, it's not that bad. And I'm like, but didn't that lady just get burned alive in the subway? He's like, yeah, but it's just the one. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no. Things seem to be okay as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that is good. And speaking of good, so recently you have completed what is sort of like the Appalachian Trail of comics reading, which is the Claremont run.
Yeah, I was putting it off. I was on the tail end for like a while, and I was like, I don't want to touch the last however many issues. Plus, I was super busy, and I finally was like, time to rip the Band-Aid off. And with my third issue coming, I'm like, let's get this done, And also, this coming weekend I'll be at Terrificon, and dude, it is a murder. If anyone's in that Connecticut area or tri-state area, go to that con. It is a murderer's row of those '80s X-Men. You got like Claremont, the Simonsons, Ann Nesenti, Silvestri, Bob McCloud. Like, it is like a murderer's row, even down to like Bob Wycheck, of just 8 X-Men fans. So earlier today, I was like, you know what? I'm not getting a lot of other work done. I have time before one of my interviews. I just started going through and going, okay, I have something by this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. I'm probably not going to get much signed because I'm doing my job. But I was like, man, it would be great. And especially now that I've capped it off, I could go in there. And it was great. So the last couple issues, it was like the Uncanny, like it was the Muir Island saga, marathon that, and then which was really only 2 of those issues. 1.5 of those issues was Claremont, but I'm like, I'm gonna finish the story, and then I was like, all right. Then I have the last 3 X-Men, 1991 1 through 3, marathon those, and the last. Thank God for those X 1 through 3, because otherwise, I would have been fairly disappointed. I'll be honest.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, because he quit halfway through one of the issues, and then he doesn't even get to write the ending with the we're confronting the Shadow King, and then Claremont doesn't write that. To be fair, I think Nicheza did a good enough job of wrapping up that storyline, keeping it thematically. That's one of the things I will give him credit for is he felt like, even if not as much in his words, everyone felt in character. It felt like, okay, yeah, this is what Claremont probably would have. If not, what he would have done, might have been slightly different, but it felt in voice, And
yeah.
That's all. Even if you're not writing his stuff, if you don't match his voice as a writer, if you can match the voice of his characters, that's all I really ask for. Which apparently is a higher bar than I would have thought, because I get to the ending and I'm like, they give this last thesis statement in X-Men 1 through 3, because I feel like with those issues, it's Claremont going, okay, I get to do one last story. I did my Shadow King story that I was building up to. Yeah, it may not have been as epic and long form as he had planned, but it's like, okay, I like that at least got done. Okay, now I get to do a final statement on Magneto. Final confrontation with Magneto. And in the end, I love that it's like, you could, and I am going to for at least a while, stop reading X-Men here, because it's kind of like Magneto gives his final thoughts and Xavier gives his last retort, and that's the note we end on. And it's perfect. And I'm like, and I was reading it and I'm like, man, this is just, I like that he finally goes, okay, no more running plot lines, which he's great at, but it's like, he can end a story when he wants to. Which is one of the things I like. He can be brief when he wants to. And he goes, here's what I have to say. And I'm like, I'm looking at Magneto's speech and I'm looking at Xavier's. I'm like, man, they totally are just, modern X-Men are just siding with Magneto, openly. There was someone on TikTok I was scrolling the other day, and they were basically like, if X-Men they were mocking the X-Men as being fake Democrats, and Magneto as being, and not even to get political, because I don't even see it in that light personally.
Yeah,
it's just a human thing, or I guess mutant thing, right? But they were like, they're the fake ones and the real ones, and all the comments Magneto was always right. I'm like, did you guys not? Well, I know the answer. They didn't read Claremont's run, but I'm like, I basically said, I was straight up like, you guys are agreeing with the villain. You're verbatim agreeing with the villain.
Yeah. I don't. There's something going on. I hate to be the old man who's the youth of today.
Yeah,
but
me too. I want to get along with people my age, but they'll say stuff where I'm like,
yeah, there's something going on where if you look at even all the Marvel movies past, really starting with Captain Marvel, it's they don't seem to be able to understand what makes a hero and what makes a villain. You can't have okay, you can have Wolverine kill people, you can have that dark anti-hero, but he's still following his own code. He's still not full murder hobo yet. But it seems like a lot of the modern stuff, even WandaVision, she
does horrible stuff in that show, and they're like, well, she was going through a tough time. It's like,
so I can go enslave 3,000 people if my dog dies or something.
Yeah, but she's the real victim, if you think about it. That was one of the things that drove me nuts, is what I loved about, I always felt what separated hero from villain, and you'll see this sentiment echoing in Phenomenova, is how they deal with tragedy and how they deal with injustice, right? The world's not always fair. That's a fact. And the hero doesn't always win. And that was one of the things that was reinforced in Claremont's run. One of the things that I liked about it almost, it did in some ways, a lot of the ways, muddy the waters in terms of it's not always a clear-cut victory for the heroes. Sometimes you do have to, I don't want to work with Magneto, but for the great, sometimes you have to do that, but it's not condoning everything the man does. It's, hey, we're giving you a chance at redemption. Don't mess this up. Please, we're trying to show you better, right? Please, please, please don't mess this up. And one of the things that's different between heroes and villains is basically the way they react to death and injustice. One of the things that inspired me, because I, to get personal for a second, my dad was murdered when I was young, and it was like what heroes did was they showed me that you could take injustice and you can use it as an excuse to make the world a better place. To make it try your best to make a world where someone else doesn't go through that, or at least show them a better path when something does. Because the way a hero reacts to that is, okay, how do I make myself nothing like that person? Whereas a villain will make themselves, or villain or even anti-hero, make themselves more like that person, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I think heroes are missing nowadays, is I think just a lot of stuff driven by spite. And I think that's just a big, big, big problem.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So I'm kind of curious, since you started all the way at the beginning and you finished off at the end, were you even? I don't think you were even born
At
when
any
he
point
finished his
during
run.
that,
Yeah.
no.
So, does the run resonate with you at all?
Absolutely. There are some dated reference. The one thing I say with these older comics is the dated references are the one thing. The pop culture. Oh, I was watching Magnum PI. That Sunspot says I was like, Magnum PI. Oh, okay, all right. This, like stuff like that. Or I'll be reading a Spider-Man comic and they're like, wow, that girl's like whatever, and it's like, okay, look this actress up. Okay, what? Oh, okay, she was hot when this came out. So that's basically he's saying this woman's gorgeous. Okay, got it. Like, so pop culture references in general, though Claremont wasn't as bad about it. Love Stan Lee, but Stan Lee was bad about that, man. It was like, I would be like constantly, okay, what is this reference to? But I would say it holds up because it's good storytelling, timeless themes, timeless characterizations. Everything is just as relevant today as it was back then. Because what we're dealing with, and I try to do with this too, it's why I sent my world in a time that won't exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's because we're dealing with themes that transcend time, that transcend race, that transcend humanity. And I think that's one of the most important things is, one of the characters I relate to and so many people relate to is Nightcrawler. He doesn't look like any of us, but that's kind of the point. And I think right out the gate, Giant Size X-Men is kind of like to the point, great storytelling from that standpoint. What I like about Claremont is he's able to go, okay, let's focus on the characters. So here's the thing, even when they're dealing with threats that I'm not crazy about, the characters are so good that I'm care enough to read it and go, maybe we'll get a cooler villain next time. Like there's that issue. I didn't care for Count Nefaria, and that's the first villain they faced. I'm like, what are these like animal creatures? But I cared about the X-Men going against them, and that was what mattered. And then there's that issue where like Cyclops accidentally hits that thing in the woods, and then the monster pops out. I'm like, yeah, that was like fine enough, but let's some cool action with the characters. And hey, Moira shows up, and I think one of the things that I loved about Claremont's run is I had known the X-Men for a while. I watched the movies, all that good stuff, right? And it was kind of almost having to force myself to set aside what I know and go, okay, how did they, and kind of, so Wolverine wasn't that powerful with a healing factor. So Nightcrawler really couldn't teleport that much in the beginning. Does that change? And almost like unlearning what I had learned. Banshee was a core member of the team. I always liked him. He was in first class. Thought he was cool. I didn't know he was A, older than the other characters, but B, that he was like he was a core member of the cast. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that. And so that was kind of cool. Seeing Wolverine evolve into who we love today, how he's slowly, he's low, and then he stops talking, someone interrupts. Oh, have we seen him named? No one's even said his real name yet. That's crazy. And just like almost unlearning all my conceived notions was great. I think the long form storytelling, and this is when I started getting into that, I was at the time at film school. And at the time, I was like seeing issues of the industry, and I was like, where do I want to go? What do I want to focus on? Writing. And it was clear that even though I like directing and acting and all that stuff, writing was my first and foremost, you know. And I was like, look at, as I'm reading Claremont, I'm like, this guy is just going from idea to idea to idea to idea, doing long running storytelling. That superhero idea I had a while back, what if I'd make it? It was almost, they did the reverse of what most things did, where it started as a comic and then eventually became a TV show, then a movie. I did the reverse. I came up with it as a movie when I was little. Then I thought as an animated show, and then as a comic. You know, I did the reverse.
Yeah.
And I was like, I love this medium. I love comics more and more and more and more. And it just showed me like pure comic book storytelling, like pure, this is how you do in a comic book. And as I started going back through my script ideas and going, okay, and translating it to a comic book, it made me realize things that only comics can do in this medium versus film. And I was seeing an indie comics movement just in general across platforming, across YouTube. And I was like, I can do this, you know? And obviously I learned that, you know, it's not as simple as getting monthly issues out. That was where the tough part came in. I was like, oh man, I could get all these stories out in a couple of years. Not the case. But
not unless you can draw super fast too.
Yeah, and have an entire editorial promoting you and getting you in comic shops and blah, blah, blah. You know, I learned the hard way that it's actually not that simple. I remember going through one of my to-do lists years ago and seeing, oh, goals for this year, and it was like a couple of years ago, get 1 through 5 out. And I'm like, wow, that was quaint. That was quaint. You know, but ultimately, yeah, I mean, it's the long running storytelling, seeing characters evolve into how they were, showed me this is how you make pop culture icons. This is how you have to do like the way he did it. And I would just kind of analyze, why does this work? Does it like, because sometimes you'll read older comics and go, okay, that's not the character I know. But what I liked about it was right off the bat, you get a strong understanding of all these characters, and anything that's not there yet is coming about. And I would get excited because I'd go, knowing what was coming on the horizon, I'd be like, oh, I can't wait till Kitty gets here. I can't wait till Rogue gets here. I can't wait till the Dark Phoenix saga. I can't wait till this. And there would always be something I was reading toward, but I'd also be enjoying stuff in the moment.
Yeah. And the thing I like is the characters are likable even when they do it. Like even when Cyclops, Scott Summer, he sort of takes a heel turn by cheating on his wife. You still kind of like the guy. Which
and people
to me,
also they exaggerate that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, he just walked out of his wife. It's like, well, if you read the interaction, it's more like she came back from the dead and she was like, if you see the woman who came back from the dead, I'll leave. And he was like, bye. And so is he handling that perfectly? Absolutely not. But it's also like, it wasn't as if he just goes, hey, I'm leaving you. No, he was fully intending to come back. Now, did he handle everything perfectly? No. But to your point, I mean, there was always likability. Also, that wasn't Claremont's fault or his decision.
That's true. So anybody who's interested, there's a great film. I think it's still on Amazon Prime called Claremont's X-Men.
Yeah, I've been putting it off until I finish the run, and then now I'm reminded I need to. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because you were talking about that the ending Magneto stories in X-Men 1, 2, and 3, which even though Chris Claremont wrote them, I almost consider them fan fiction because he was clearly writing Magneto to have a redemption arc where he would eventually give up all that stuff and he would replace Xavier permanently. The problem is that's when all the guys who started Image got really popular. So not counting Silvestri, but you saw Rob Liefeld and Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee. They sort of took over, and the editor-in-chief pretty much gave them free reign to do what they want.
Yeah.
And in there, Rob is talking about how everybody had been there too long. And he's referencing, I believe, both Silvestri and Claremont. And then he's like, we want to see Magneto as the big bad guy like he was. It's like, oh, way to ruin 10 years of character development, Rob.
Now, to be fair, I'll often say that, like, without having read stuff, I'll be like, why is this person here now, or whatever? And sometimes it does make sense. I'll give credit where both is due. I remember I was going in going, I'm going to hate all of Liefeld's stuff. But to be fair, the New Mutants were at a point where they were like floundering. And so I understand. Yeah. And I ended up going, oh, this X-Force is going to be stupid. And then I ended up going, oh, I actually like all the new Shatterstar, all of this. I actually like the idea for X-Force. So to be fair, I get it. I get where that's all coming from. And I also, this is just me. I think personally that this stuff with Magneto turning bad again, I didn't know that Claremont officially wanted him to take over. I didn't know that because to me, I always read that as borrowed time, that eventually he was always going to turn. That's how I read it, because I just, maybe that's my bias, not reading it at the time, but I always saw it as he inevitably was going to turn, just based on how the way he'd conduct himself, that it was clear he wasn't Charles,
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting question is, how would he have been? But I think Claremont I'm pretty sure he said, he wanted that arc where at least Magneto gives up his murderous ways. Like maybe you still want mutants to be safe, but you don't necessarily need to kill Homo sapiens to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm curious about writing too. Like I despise modern comics like Invincible.
See, I liked it I remember you saying that, and I was like, oh, I was actually liking it.
For me, it's too much introspection. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, let me cry for you, super strong man who flies around the world and has a hot girlfriend. It's like, it's thou dost protest too much. And then also there's too much. I think one of the nice things about X-Men was they had a lot of downtime, especially during certain periods. There was the baseball issue or the Christmas issue.
Many different baseball instances.
Or we'll walk into Westchester, or
the bar issue.
Yeah.
The shopping issue. Yeah.
Exactly. So I kind of feel like that's, Claremont, and I don't know if he could do it today, but at least at the time, not to say everything was perfect, but he had like a really great balance between he understood it's primarily an action-oriented genre, but yet the characters could feel real because they had real feelings other than like, I want to bone this chick. And they had time to develop that. I don't even know if you could do that in a modern series published by the Big Two.
That's interesting. See, I like that, and this is where I'm at a crossroads often. It's because I want to go that introspective stuff, that whatever. And I remember earlier on when I was writing issue 1, there was a lot more of his dynamics with his friends at school. And I really reeled, like he was going to have an interaction with his crush. And I remember really going, okay, what do I want to get to first? Am I spending too much? All right, I like this. Let's cut it. And then if I want more of it, like there was a bully sequence that went on for like 10 pages. And I was like, let's condense that. What am I trying to say here? This. Okay. And there was the main bully ended up becoming a nameless side character that I named, but that never has a line of dialogue. And the psychopathic bully ended up that was going to be the side character, ended up getting more lines. And I realized, condensing, how do we get to the point? Now, issue 1 is still giant size. I still definitely took more time, and there's a lot of introspection, but I definitely think snapping to the point is often good, even with snapping to the point of introspection. That being said, I do like I get where you're coming from. Like there's this one issue that comes to mind where he has 2 girls that are into him and he's sitting talking to the guy with the costume for multiple pages. I personally liked it, but I can totally understand why people could groan looking at that. I totally I'm not going to say you don't get it. No, you get it. You just don't like it. And that is perfectly fine. I remember, so I totally get that because Claremont was able to do those character dynamics, but mold them into the story. So often,
Mhm.
even when I didn't care about the villains, um, I could be like, yeah, but it's the villains are a vehicle to get something to punch while we're illustrating this larger point in this issue.
Yeah.
Like, even I remember when I was talking to him recently at Heroes Con, he mentions like what engages him as a character, and he said, you know, there's that one issue where Cannonball, where Lila Cheney, by the way, great couple. Why aren't they married? But Lila Cheney and Cannonball, she brings him this gift, and he's like, "You must have stolen it." Ends up smashing it. No, you dope. She actually didn't. There's this conflict. By the end of the conflict, he's gonna bring her home, and ultimately, we get basically a soap opera in a comic book, but it doesn't forget that it's a comic book first and foremost. Um, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, to me, that was the most amazing part. And there were some other writers, like actually Ann Nocenti was fantastic. If you ever read her Daredevil run,
Yeah, me too.
um, she was like the same thing where you would get these like offbeat, devil in a bar, Daredevil's in a bar at Christmas, and it's all about the people who were in the bar and stuff. But she never she never misunderstands like a lot of modern comics would, where it's like all introspection, or
Yeah,
zero
some.
introspection.
But like take the bar fight. You want to talk about the perfect example? Let's talk about that bar fight issue with uh um Colossus and Juggernaut. I mean, that is one of the I think one
Yeah,
of the longer fight scenes.
yeah, yeah,
Longer panel count, page count, but that issue is like all introspection, and action is in there too. Like, you have the scene of his, first of all, Claremont's dialogue is outstanding.
yeah,
His You have Kitty and Colossus sitting down going, oh, it doesn't work. And then what happens? Let's go to a bar, kid. Let me show you how it works. Blah blah blah. Oh, this villain happens to be sitting at the bar. Now we got to fight. Character revealed through conflict, but also the conflict is cool,
yeah.
and so I love that personally. um
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think some of his later stuff, like when he came back to the X-Men series, I wasn't a huge fan of that. But he still got it. He did New Mutants War Child a few years ago, and it felt like being back in the 80s. It was fantastic.
I'll have to check that out. But no, you're already making me think, because I've written the first 8 issues, that whole arc. But he's kind of away from the high school stuff for a while. So I
Mhm.
think when I get back to it, my views on storytelling, because I'll have story arcs in mind, will have changed, where it's like, hey, can we condense this? Because I think the interpersonal stuff is important. Like, it's one of the reasons I
Yeah,
like Spider-Man. Like, I would read, when I started writing it as a comic book, I would also read Stan Lee's Spider-Man and go, okay, he would have a villain of the week, but also a personal conflict of the week.
yeah,
And you would see the ramifications in his personal life. And I want to do that, but there's a way where it's like, okay, do I need to have a fight with every friend in the friend group and have this be 5 issues, or can I just have a villain that we fight? Also, maybe they're tied together. That may or may not be my first storyline. Post issue 8 is dealing with, his Galvanite's personal journey, and I don't want to spoil too much, but I think a lot about what you're saying, and
mhm.
it's definitely tough, because you want to keep the story going forward while doing it. Now, sometimes I will say they do sometimes shoot themselves in the foot, where it's
Yeah,
like, okay, we didn't need a conflict this issue. I get it. It's an action book. It's okay. Like, one that comes to mind, I actually don't mind this too much, is 176,
mhm.
where if you remember, like, it's right after the Mastermind whole issue, and they're like, oh, you could tell they were like, oh, we need to fight this issue. Okay, there's just a giant squid.
Yeah,
The plane that he gets on with his love, there's just a giant squid, shows up, he beats in 2 seconds, and we move on. It's like, okay, this was the obligatory. We don't have a conflict, but I didn't necessarily mind it,
yeah.
especially because that cover is awesome, where he's getting held and he's like, oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, I really loved his pacing, because he never forgot what the story was, and he wasn't afraid to say, like, let's say two characters had an argument or a fight or something.
Mhm.
He would put that on the back burner for like, another 18 issues until he could fit it in again.
Yeah.
And then get that storyline in there.
And sometimes that was infuriating. Like to
Sure.
me, what bothered me was like, okay, this wasn't Claremont. X Factor was such a mess the whole
Yeah.
time. Like there were times I was like, yeah, and there were times I was like, oh, X Factor, I have to read X Factor. I don't want to read. Like the one example was when Scott was like, oh, I can't tell her I have a wife and kid. Dude, just say that in issue 1. Can we please stop beating around the bush? It's like, oh, we got the villains. But that also, to me, felt like failure to balance it properly.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't think Cyclops would do that personally, that he'd put that off. I think he'd be like, listen, Gene, here's where we're at. I like you. I think that's what drove people away, is if he was very upfront, Gene, I don't think we can go any further. I have a wife and kid. People would have forgiven that. But it was handled so poorly. But I think, to your point, yeah, they would sometimes put off a character dynamic, put even relationships, like a lot of the shipping stuff, not really in Claremont's run. There'll be like some hints, but it was not very romance heavy, to the point where characters that, in my opinion, were blatantly, and Claremont would even say is blatantly gay or whatever, gets mixed because it wasn't because he literally wasn't allowed to say it because of the comics code, right?
Yes.
But B, because the story kept moving, regardless of who liked who. The story always kept moving. We didn't have time for tons of romance scenes because Chris has 8 other plot lines that he's developing.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. Although it's interesting. Well, when you watch Claremont's X-Men, they do talk about the ratio of male to female readers, and the female readers of X-Men were much higher than any other book at its time, specifically because of the relationships. Even though it wasn't as like disgustingly overt as you would have in modern comics, they really dug that. Probably because like nobody else was doing that back then. But
yeah, I think people need to remember that it's an action series. Like I like romance in other genres typically. I don't watch a lot of romance movies. The best one I could think of, actually, because I'm especially romantic comedies. Crazy Stupid Love is great though. If you've never seen that, that's a great one. That's almost like a guy's rom-com, which you would think doesn't exist. It does, and it's like the best. Obviously, I'm biased as a guy, but best one. But typically I love romance in certain stories, especially when it complements the story. And even then, a lot of the romances that people love were not Chris's favorites. They were meant to be. Romance was often a vehicle for something else that he was trying to say. Like Kitty Pryde and Colossus was never, I didn't even know this, not meant to be an endgame thing. That was meant to be like a growing up thing. Hence that issue we talked about. Kitty, of course, that's not. She's too young. He's this 6'7" Russian guy. Sorry, he's not going to stick around for the especially as he's old enough to drink now. He's not going to stick around for the little girl. As much as cute as she is, she's not. It's just not going to happen. And what that becomes is a growing up experience, but also okay, did you handle that well, Colossus? Let's bring you out to a bar. Let's talk it through. And that was another thing too, is the men were still men, the women were still women. There was definitely some of that, like people, I don't even want to say woke because people overuse the term. But like you could definitely tell there was some like feminist stuff in there, like especially with Mystique down to her name. Like she was a lesbian character that was named after the feminine Mystique, right? But you could also, the men were men and women were women, and you think the men, how do they handle that situation? Let's go to a bar. 2 times that happens. And then you had the women right after Inferno, the immediate next issue, it was because the team at the time, if you remember, was 8 characters. There was the 4 chicks and the 4 guys. The girls, what do? They go to the shopping mall. They meet Jubilee. But even still, there is a superhero conflict in the shopping mall. It's not just that. It is an action series. They're not going to have their perfect shopping day. They have a villain, and oh, look at that, a new hero. The story was still, it didn't stop for them to have fun. Then you have the guys where they go to the bar. Oh my God, there's an alien invasion, but it's still just that, and that was the beauty of it. You could have those downtime issues, and then you could have those more fun issues, and then you could have serious stuff.
And to me, it's interesting to see like how much influence this had on other people. One of the I can't remember the guy's name, but I think he was the head writer for Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and he said they got a lot of their ideas from Claremont
Mhm.
because Deep Space Nine was like the first Star Trek that really wasn't episodic. Like it had an overall series arc and season arcs. Um, and they weren't afraid to have these really long storylines where characters would pop in for 2 episodes and then they pop in the next season, and it's amazing. uh Claremont's run, I think it's in a lot of ways defining because it almost feels like an indie comic would, where you have even though it was made by the big two and you had big name artists on it for at least 15 years, you had one singular vision. So
Mhm.
everything was consistent within that vision. And it's when you have stuff like X Factor that it starts to fall apart. And definitely after Claremont, like for me, it was almost immediately Fabian Nicieza and Scott Lobdell. It's just like, oof.
Yeah,
And
see,
then
I
it
think
got
I'm going to
worse.
step away from that. Maybe I'll get to it, but I think I'm going to step away for a bit. I've got New Teen Titans I want to finish.
Oh,
I
nice.
didn't give it my full attention because I was like, was splitting it between the Claremont run. I loved it, but I'm like, all right, let me finish this. So I'm going to finish Invincible and know your favorite. And then I'm going to finish New Teen Titans. That was one of the things. One of the main things when I was writing my stuff was I wanted to learn from the masters that came before me. And oh my God, I mean, Claremont has earned that title. And then even New Mutants. I mean, I knew
Yeah.
nothing about those characters. Walked away loving every single one of them. Or you want to talk about characters that I was excited? There were certain. You mentioned things like does it hold up? I mean, one of the things, the storytelling, the way. I think what it also, I was watching the comic industry evolve into what I had known,
Hmm.
in real time, how it went from this. It was like once every 2 months to now it's every month to now we got a spinoff to now we got two to now we got this big crossover event to now we got these and you see the better and worse of those, but you see how everything kind of spun off and the ramifications it had, not just for the X-Men but the industry in general, across the board, throughout that run, like,
Yeah.
okay, there's this X-Men event. There's also, this affects Avengers. This affects like Inferno, which I didn't read the spin-offs. I don't know. I know that Innocenti's Daredevil tied in heavily with Inferno, but the
Yeah.
thing is, you didn't have to read that. And I think you kind of see the cracks forming towards the end, but also the good stuff. Um, and I think it like really, it was a masterclass in comic book storytelling. Is the bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of nits to pick with the whole Claremont run.
Yeah, of course.
Not everything he wrote worked well, and you
No.
could definitely find the issues and the storylines that weren't great. But when you look at the totality of it, it was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of fantastic, uh, Phenomenova Part 3.
Yeah, so this is where we're finally introducing the title team. It took a few issues, but I think I spent my time well with the first two, and now we're jumping right into the action. So if you want to we can do the trailer, and then I'll kind of give my whole pitch, if that's cool.
All right. Hang on one second. I gotta hopefully turn the sound on. Okay, that's working. There we go. Okay, should work.
Oh, sound's having issues, it looks like.
Uh-oh. I hear it.
Sometimes that happens. If need be, we could skip the trailer. That's fine.
Let me try one more time here. That is on. All right, let's see if this works.
No.
Sorry. A bit of trouble with that audio. Strange. Browser. I don't know that I can get the audio at the moment, but
That's fine.
sorry.
All right. No worries. All good. So, Phenomenova Issue 3, Chain Reaction, follows Miles Hanksley, who is the son of a veteran. Or, sorry, let me rephrase that. Phenomenova Issues 1 and 2, for those of you that are new, follows Miles Hanksley. He is the son of a veteran who is struck by lightning while holding a mysterious crystal and strikes out to become a superhero. And we see him fail, and now he's being taken in by one of the veteran superheroes who fought in World War III 20 years before this story began. Now, Phenomenova itself is the team that he's being trained to join. We see them in full force finally in this issue. So issue 3 is kind of a mix of a prequel, but also a sequel in the sense that we have this character, Estrella, who's essentially a superhero detective. That she's the one who's deaf and blind, who has psychometry, kind of like Longshot did, but she can absorb information through physical contact. She can absorb the memories and things of the world in real time. That's how she's able to see and hear. And if memories are fresh, she comes to a crime scene and she can investigate. She is considered one of the greatest detectives in the world for that very reason. And so she's both a detective and a member of this team. And she is reliving her team's intervention at the reactor, as well as understanding what happened. How did we get here? We see how the villains, entered the reactor. What were they trying to steal? What was going on? We see how it ties in with the events of the first 2 issues, and everything kind of starts to click together. Who were the villains? What were they there for? How did the heroes get in? How did they fare against these villains? We're introduced to the title team, Phenomenova, for the first time. And instead of doing the slow introduction in earlier drafts, I had it where you were introduced one by one. Hey, here I am. Here are my powers, whatever. As I was writing, I'm like, let's just throw them into the action. You can learn about the characters as we go. And that's kind of what we do here. So we have our 4 main members, and we also have the team. And we're learning about the characters. We're getting our themes going while continuing the story. It is a superhero action story for us. And I think this is my fastest paced issue. It is between issues 1 and 2 in terms of page count. So issue 1 was a giant size first issue, 65 pages of story. Issue 2 was 24 pages of story. And issue 3 is 43 pages of story. So issue 3, I wanted to have, I kind of was like, oh, it was 28 in one draft. And my editor gave me some notes, and he was like, I was like, that's good. And then I added some pages. He goes, well, you still didn't fully address this. Added some more. And while I was at it, I added some more action and went, you know what? There's a lot that happens in these pages. My artist loves Jim Lee a lot. Let me give him some more breathing. We're showing off all these characters for the first time. Let's just take a look at these characters and watch them just explode into the action. Let's let them show off their powers. So I gave some more page count for the action. I answered some questions from issues 1 and 2 right out of the gate. And if you're like, I'm new to this, I don't know if I want to read the first 2. It is new reader friendly. That's an important thing to me, but it'll be even better when complemented with the first 2 issues. But this being a bunch of new characters, I want it to also be able to introduce new readers.
That's something that, as I write my own stuff, I realize it's really important. I think it was Jim Shooter who said every issue is somebody's first issue.
Yes.
And, you got to make sure that they're not confused. So that, they can't figure out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great. I am curious. So, you mentioned originally issue 3 was going to be 28 pages and it gets longer and longer. Do you get a sense that the sort of appetite of the indie comic buying public is changing in terms of length of issues?
This is just me being completely frank. I had written it, because again, I was kind of much like how they were trained. I was trained through reading so much X-Men to write. Okay, generally my mind was working. I'm going to write this in 20 something page, which structurally changes the stories, right? And then issue 1, 2, and 3, I was like condensed them into one bigger issue because I was like, to your point, like I was like, we're not getting the action fast enough. That's fine. But then let's get to the action by the end of the first issue. Thank you. I hope you check it out. And the first 10 pages are free to read on Global Comics of issue 1. So you could read those. And then if you have a membership, you could read the first 2 issues. But yeah, I think everyone who says this looks up my alley, no one ever really gets disappointed in this book, which is good to me. And every issue I think is better than the last in a lot of ways. Even though I'm partial to 1 because it was my baby, and it was a lot of people will tell me, like, I think on a technical level, my storytelling improved with 2, and I think it improved even further with 3. There were multiple times I was like, this is great. And then I was like, my editor would point something out. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, it's even better, but this is the last one. And then that happened like multiple times. So I am just so proud of this issue in particular. For me though, sorry to get off track, people said everyone liked issue 2, but a lot of people were like, this is too short. And I said, listen, man, once I start making that kind of money, I could do even multiple issues, even if I want to keep that 20 something page count an issue, which I upped it to 28 pages. My standard I was setting with 2 was 24 to 28. It was 24 in issue 2. And then I immediately break the standard I'm setting with 3. And then I'm moving back because I've written the first 8. It's like 28 per issue. And then for issue 8, I was like, I can go a little bit further. So that is going to be the standard. Now, does the market generally prefer bigger books? Yeah. But I also, there's this thing called money. You know, you have to pay for those bigger books. And so I want to keep this series coming out at a regular enough pace, because that was one of the things that drew me to writing comics instead of going for film. Okay, do I want to wait for years to deliver this much and then wait, this much and then wait? No, let's keep those wait times shorter. Keep those, so which means the page count's going to be what it's going to be. And obviously, the faster things go, the faster I can move. Ideally, in lieu with Claremont, I would love to even have fill-in artists. Like if there's, we have a blank space. My equivalent of BWS doing an issue. Then we get, what was it, 205?
Yeah.
Or those life death. I have a murderer's row of artists I'd love to work with. I would love to, after the first 8 issues, be at a point where I could just start paying people to fill in those gaps. And, but to answer your question with the market, people have shorter attention spans, but apparently issue 2, a lot of people go, it was great, it was too short. But I take that as a compliment, because I'm like, so you wanted more? Well, then back the next one.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a bigger state of flux in the industry in general than, than more than just big 2 and indies. I think we're at a point where, the comic book itself may end up becoming larger like manga, but then especially when you're looking at the indie scene, it's going to take much longer to put out those kind of books. So there's always a certain amount of, you don't want to go 3 years between books, right?
No.
Then nobody's going to remember what you did. So there has to be some sort of balance between, as an indie person, you can't get it out monthly like the big 2 used to, but you also can't wait years and years. So,
and the fact of the matter is, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, I was just going to say, I just think that we're sort of in that weird period where we're trying to figure out exactly.
Yeah.
I hate to say modern audiences, but basically modern audiences.
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
What they're interested in.
And I think here's the fact of the matter. One of the things I've learned is ultimately people like stuff that's good. Yeah. I know that sounds like tacky, whatever. Fact of the matter is, a lot of these people are going to read this in a trade down the line. The fact of the matter is, whether it was issue 1 with 65 pages or issue 2 with 24 pages, they're still going to read it in one sitting. That's just the honest truth. They're still going to read it in one sitting. They're still going to wait. Sometimes they'll get the book and they're like, well, they'll wait until the next one comes out, which means I don't get that audience response, which means I don't get that feedback. So the best way to do that, let's keep the train moving. So that way people are constantly, if you like the book, share about it, tell your friends. If you're waiting, even if it's, let's say it's a longer book, okay,
Mhm.
you have it sitting on your shelf with your other indie books, because most people back me have other projects they backed. I want to be the one that you want to get to read faster, which means I got to put out faster. Sometimes that'll mean lower page counts, but it also, one of the reasons I say I grew as a writer with issue 2 is because I gave myself that, okay, we have a tight page count, 24 pages. I said, okay, we got to be more concise in my storytelling. And there would be parts where I'd send it off to my editor. He goes, why are you meandering here for this many pages? What's the core of the issue about? I'm not getting it. I said, well, it's about this. Then let's expand on that. Okay, cut this out. There's the scene of him flirting with a hot chick. Once again, and again, I'm not anti-romance, but 2 issues in a row, romance scenes get cut. 2 issues in a row. What does that say about where your priorities lie? And I think condensing down helped me improve. So even if it is an 8-issue storyline, I was like, especially if you have to wait months between each issue, let me pack a punch with each issue. I don't want you to be like, oh, I waited a couple months for this 28 pages, and that could have been 5.
Yeah.
Why am I backing this guy again? That was one of the things that I liked. And I think I upped it to 28 pages per story with issue 4, because I felt like, let's make those punches hit harder. 5, let's make those punches hit harder. So I still am condensing it, but now I get to say, hey, that page, that action sequence, that was 1 page. We can make like 3 out of it.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing people forget a lot about how comics used to be. Not to totally derail us back onto Claremont.
No, go ahead.
Those old X-Men issues, there would be like 5 things that happen in
per issue.
In 20 pages. And I remember the first indie that I reviewed was Bigfoot Bill in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like 90 some pages, and only 5 things happened in 90 some pages. It was like, oh my God, what's going on? So I do think that, that's kind of a skill that's lost, that it makes making shorter issues more feasible if you can condense things down.
It literally economically is better to be condensed. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes I like to expand, but I look at Claremont's stuff and he was great at condensing, because if you might go, that's like 100 something issues. Okay, give most current writers that, including me, that amount of issues. Will I be able to tell that many different stories with that many different plot elements and that many different? Most writers can't, like the amount he was able to get done. Yeah. When I would read it, I'll give you an example. I read 5 books from my pull list. I could probably go through 5 of those faster than 1 Claremont issue. Same page count. Why? Because even down to stand, like there were times, this is a 15-page issue. Now, I'm a slow reader, but I was like, this is 45 minutes read time, because they force you to slow down. And I think part of that was, again, getting to your point with the 90s. I love Jim Lee. Don't get me wrong. I think I like Silvestri. So my first comic was Batman Hush, right? So I love that. And it spoiled me art-wise for a while, because I'd be like, this isn't Jim Lee. And as I've gotten older, I've learned to appreciate other artists, because this stuff is flashy. It's cool. But I go, but who's the better sequential storyteller? I think Silvestri.
Yeah.
And I love Jim Lee. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to even say he's a bad storyteller. He's not. He's a very good storyteller. But in my eyes, those other guys that had to get this many things in kind of kept improving in their storytelling. Jim Lee, there were times I was revisiting Batman Hush years later. I still liked it, but I was like, why is this a double page spread? It's awesome. Mm-hmm. That could have been right up here. Why, And I think that's another thing. People got mad at me on that for Twitter too. I was pointing out a sample page of Daredevil Born Again. I was like, can we get more pages like this in comics, where there would be like panel, splash. Like, now we have a moment to fixate on. And I think when you do too many splash pages and too many whatever, it's a problem. I remember my artist said, hey, like Jim Lee, I'd love to do 4 panels a page, whatever. And I was like, so with issue 3, again, not only am I getting better as a writer, not only is he getting better as an artist, we're getting better as a team. Because I said, okay, I get that. Why don't we'll do some of these pages with this a lot, some of this a little. And I also relaxed a lot more as a writer, in the sense that now what I'll do is I'll be like, here's panels, and I'll say panels, and I'll just describe what happens. And I'll be like, all right, just as long as this happens by this page, you know what? I like the way you draw this. If you want to go crazy with certain things, Here you go. And I actually found that yields better results. Like there was a sequence that was 4 pages with a reactor. And I said, there are 2 spreads here. And there's another page at the end. That's like it was pages, what was it? Like 10, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I was like, here's what's going to happen. You know, pace it as you do. And he makes one of them a bit of a spread with panels. And he makes one of them, 2 of them, just 2 different pages. And I was like, you could have made that a spread. He goes, no, I felt this was better for a storytelling perspective. I'm like, okay. And I liked it. We're learning a lot. And I think that was another thing Claremont did well, was he knew how to work with his artists. What do you like to draw? Like down to the fact that his storytelling would kind of change a bit. Like he knew to write to Jim Lee's strengths. He knew to write to Sylvester. Sylvester likes drawing beautiful women. Okay, cool. He also likes drawing that kind of outback kind of like stuff. All right, let's write to that. He's good at drawing architecture and demons. Let's have a story, Inferno, where the architecture goes crazy and all that stuff. And let's have a hot chick that's a villain and a lot of demons. Sylvester draws that well. And I think that was another thing, is the way he was able to collaborate with so many different artists. And I think that's another thing that I love about writing for comics compared to writing for film, compared to writing for short stories. It's very much a collaborative process, which is frustrating at first because you're like, oh God, I'm going to nitpick every little thing. And I did at the beginning, sometimes the good, sometimes the not. And you learn to breathe a little, you learn to walk better. And I think that, again, just simply reading these comics made me a better writer. And then I'd go, if I'm like, I'm not getting the impact I'm wanting, how did Claremont do it? And I'd be like, oh, that was simpler than I remember. I imagined like a huge moment. It's just a little panel right here. Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree. In this sort of indie space, you take on not only the writer role, you are ultimately the editor-in-chief, you are the publisher, you are the marketer, so everything sort of lies on your shoulder, and it's hard to give up that sort of creative control. But I do find too that if you give artists more, not just input, but like you kind of make them responsible for more of the book. Usually, not always, I've learned not always, but usually that makes them a lot more invested in the project.
Right.
Makes them really want to put a lot more effort into it, which, of course, it's going to be.
And all artists are different. You have to learn to work with different artists.
Yeah.
This guy's good at this. Even with covers, it's almost like a sample of, that's what it's like to work with this person. Okay. Like, okay, this artist did great. One of the things that, and you'll learn different challenges. Like one of the things as an overhead, and this is where I'm just as much an editor, almost as a writer, is you learn things like, okay, even just artists across character designs, what is acceptable deviations and what aren't? And that is an ever-changing standard that's very subjective. I have to go, okay, this character's armor looks a bit different in this piece. Is that okay? Or am I doing, it's just tough. It's, and it's, you're always learning. And the fact of the matter is I'm creating the standards, sometimes when you let a character run with something, what happens? I'm running a fan art contest. Everyone thinks this is this thing. And I'm like, no, that was just, and then I learned that lesson. Okay.
That's, by the way, this is a fantastic publicity photo you have.
Thank you. I was in Vegas and this girl took a picture and I was like, works.
There you go.
New profile. But the finger guns one got old,
So, for an indie book, I have to say, like, this is probably the largest creative team that I have seen. You really have, like, I think the only thing you're missing is inker as a separate category.
Right. Well, a lot of these are cover artists, so it's really not that large. I just they don't always list them all. And even then, I could have made this bigger. Like Zach, who was Zach's cover colorist, and I kind of again condensed even this. I'm like, okay, I don't need to list every little thing.
But that's great. So I am curious, when you're looking for the alternative covers, how do you, because you sort of have your main thing where you want to keep on brand, but then you want people to like bring in some sexy excitement for alternative covers. How do you go about picking what style um, or whatnot for your alternative covers?
So it boils down to a number of things, right? Um, Obviously, budget plays a factor, but outside of that, so with issue one, I knew, okay, right out the gate, I want there to be the main cover by Philip. Philip, here's what I want you to. He came out with this beautiful cover that had a thumbnail that had all the characters, and I said, Philip, this is. I don't even want. I hate saying no to this. Can we save this for issue 4, when it's focused more on the heroes? Spoiler for that. And just I need the heroes in action. These 4 characters fighting villains. It could be one of these villains. It could be multiple of these villains. That's what I need for the main cover. And he took a long time. He normally is pretty fast in certain terms of covers. He took a long time with this cover, but the end result worth the wait. And because issue 2 wasn't even done yet when he was doing that cover, like issue 2, the colors, the print, it was allowed. It was like, okay, he's allowed to spend more time on this. And it came out great. And I'm like, okay, well, so now we have all these other villains, right? Let's make sure we have a villain-centric cover. Okay, I had an artist for that. Adriana was originally going to be my artist. Then she ended up having other stuff in her life, but she designed the character of Vivacity, and some of her designs led to the creation of Force and Thermo, right? Some of her earlier artwork was used. So I was like, all right, well, she co-created Vivacity. I want her to draw the character eventually for either a spin-off issue, or we're even thinking an origin story issue with that, or an origin story. I guess it would be graphic novel, that character. I'm like, let's get her to draw a cover with her character that she co-created. So that was another one. And then she had color schemes that she was working with, and I was like, ooh, I like this. And I was like, you know what? Why don't we just do that other color scheme? Because I was like, while we have that art, you want us to do a limited edition cover with that other? So that ballooned into, that's now 3 covers, right? Okay, I have a villain cover. Well, initially my villain cover was going to be by, I don't know if I want to say, but like a named artist who I know, who I thought would have been great, and he just couldn't make the deadline. And I was like, okay, I need it done by this. And it was actually originally going to be a wraparound cover. And I was like, okay, Zach, can you make it? Can you draw these villains? Yeah. Okay, cool. Zach, I've wanted to work with you forever. I've worked with Zach on a few things. I know he can draw good villains. So I'm like, all right, you're doing this cover. He ended up having a lot in his personal life, so he didn't even make that deadline either. But I was like, hey, I was behind anyway. It worked. Now I also need a named artist cover. Okay. Initially it was, and I'll just say it because he's going to do an issue 4 cover. It was going to be V. Ken Marion, but he was like, hey, he was on board, but he's like, it's going to be a really tight deadline. And he was also like, I want to draw your main cover, which when I have an artist like that who wants your main character, which when I have an artist like that who wants to draw that, I'm like, great. Problem, my main character is barely in this issue, but it was like a V cover, so I would have been fine with it. But he couldn't really make the deadline. So I'm like, he basically goes, do you want me to, it probably makes more sense for me to do issue 4. So I'm like, okay, push that back. Now we have all these covers. That's fine. But I want a name, someone with a decent following now as a marketing expense, but also whatever. Because all these guys did great. Philip did great. Zach did great. Adriana did great. Bobby, who normally does the back cover, goes, hey, do you want to just do a limited edition cover? And he just starts drawing it. And I'm like, okay, sure. So I just was like, if you're willing to get paid after the crowdfund, why not throw it on there as an option? Sure. And he just starts drawing that. I'm like, okay, great. But I want a named artist. And Pear had done this little book called Vatican City. And initially I had been like, hey, sorry, I can't afford to do all these artists. But now that V couldn't make the deadline, I go, Pear, can you get this by then? Yeah. Okay, cool. You're in. And that was kind of how it worked. I had to have like cover all my bases, and that was it. And with Pear, I was hiring him because he was a named whatever. He didn't have as specific a prompt. So I was like, here's the script, because I think he's a brilliant, brilliant visual storyteller. And I was like, I knew he was going to come up with something that I wasn't even thinking of. So I didn't even give him any sort of prompt. I just said, What are you thinking based on the issue? And there was a scene, because I thought, oh, he's going to do something with Estrella. He's going to do something trippy here. He goes, this scene where they're grappling up and he's holding the doctor, I want to do that. I was like, that is awesome. I didn't even think of that. And he shows the thumbnail. I'm like, yo, that's great. Great choice on my end. And I may or may not be eventually selling the original artwork for that on the campaign. But sorry, that was long-winded, but it was a mix of deadlines. It was a mix of, I want to work with this artist. I want to show off this character. A mix of a variety of elements.
Definitely. So this particular Kickstarter, you've got the new issue is issue 3, and you've got issues 1, 2, and 3. And you've mentioned, issues 4 and 5 and 8. Is this something that you have a definite end to the story, or is this more like sort of traditional comics that just keep going on and on?
So I have a backdoor exit if need be. I need to write the full script. I just haven't yet because I'm more focused on the present and what's important. But if need be, if I need to end it earlier, I want to end the story. Here it is. Kind of like a Dark Knight Returns-esque, Hulk the End-esque, kind of like, all right, we can't write anymore. We're out of steam. I'm about to pivot to something else. God forbid. I hope it doesn't happen. But if it does, I have my final book. Otherwise, I want to keep going and going and going. And then I do have an end-ish in like this series is not going to run forever, but I have so many ideas it might as well at this point in my life. Like as long as I can keep telling stories, I like kind of like Claremont. I want to go for a very long time. I have spin-off ideas too. I want to go for at least 100 something, if not longer. You know, so I would love to do like a Claremont style run, and then have an ending. So I do have an ending in mind, kind of, but I learned to kind of be somewhat malleable. But I know like the thesis note I want to end on. I have my final storyline that I want to do. I know what I want that final storyline to be, who I want the final villain to be, vaguely who I want the heroes on that team to be at that period in time. I have characters I want to meet on the way, and I have a bunch of steps. So I have a long way to go, but I also learned to allow myself, if you overplan, especially when it comes to working with artists, that could almost be shooting yourself in the foot. So again, it's always, with everything in the creative process, it's always a balancing act. But I do have an ending in mind. It's just not anytime soon. Sorry, I'm very long-winded with my answers.
And so now it seems like you've settled in a bit more, where you've got a bit more trust, and you're able to let go a little more when it comes to the art. Do you ever think that you will have guest writers?
Yeah, I've thought of that too. I thought of everything. Sorry, while I was waiting for the trailer, I drafted a tweet. So I was just like, yeah, always promoting. But yeah, man, I have actually. My whole thing is there's this thing called paying people that I would love to do, And my whole thing is, especially if I could, like, I would love to be constantly putting out work. And as long as it's making enough money, if I could pay someone and then profit from the project, great. Or even if it buffs up the portfolio. But yeah, I've had, even my editor has been like, hey, I would love to do something with this if you ever need a guest writer. And I'm like, yeah, a fan favorite people seem to want, or even creator favorite, artist favorite. One character I think has a lot of spin-off potential, kind of like how Wolverine did, is Estrella, with her being the detective, her being able to kind of rewind memories and like live in memories. So many people want to do stuff with that character in particular. I have other spin-offs planned. I'd love to work with other writers. I think and again, why it's important to read Claremont's run is the pitfalls of working with other writers. There's some stuff where other writers come on and it's great. The fear is, and the difference is, I am the captain of this ship, which means no one gets to write a Phenomenova story without me approving it, right? No one gets to do that. Yeah. But I get to do that. I get to tell people, here where the boundaries are, and sometimes the good thing about not over planning every little thing is that I kind of can go, hey, you could bend it, you could do it, just don't destroy my toys. Oh, here's a character that appeared in this issue. I don't have any plans for them in the immediate future. Here's my plans down the line. if someone comes up with something even cooler that doesn't totally destroy the character, all right. So to answer your question, again, once again, long-winded, absolutely. I don't know that I'd get there yet, but part of why I'm pushing this particular campaign so hard is, one, it's the title team. Two, I want it to make money. Three, all these things you're talking about. Are you going to do spin-offs? Are you going to keep putting it out? You have other ideas. Yes to all the above, but let's see how big this universe can get. Because like how X-Men had to blow up as a title to get New Mutants, to get all those spin-offs, to get all like the annuals, whatever. I have to do that with Phenomenova. I'd love to. Even issue 1, we see right out the gate the double page spread with the heroes who fought during World War III. I've wanted to do a prequel series from a limited series called Crusader Corps. I can't get to that yet until I'm confident Phenomenova is an ongoing title that makes money, which may be longer than I thought. But also, the more Phenomenova blows up, if it becomes a cash cow where I could just start doing all my other ideas, or other people can pitch ideas in my universe and know that, hey, it's not just me making the money. Yes, the answer is absolutely yes.
Yeah. So, I've, at the beginning of the show, I pitched my campaign guide for Dungeons and Dragons Adventures. I have people writing adventure modules in my world. And for me, one of the more interesting things too is, when you're in your own head and you're writing your own thing, you don't always understand what clicks with other people.
Right.
Where,
or what doesn't, which is why people need hire editors, people.
Definitely. So I've hired some people to write adventure modules for the world that I created. And it's interesting to see what other people pick up on. Like, oh, I like this little, I want to write about this here, and I thought, I thought that was just a little throwaway part.
But if that's one of the beautiful things about comics is, and one of the reasons why I absolutely want other creatives to come on, because I know there are so many, especially with issue 3 in particular, there is a character that I created literally to serve a single function, and that is it. And then someone goes, oh, I want to do a story with them. And I go, I was just going to throw them to the way. Okay, if you have something cooler than what I was going to do, go ahead, So that's one of the exciting things, even down to I have other artists and I'll ask them, hey, just curious, if you were to work on a character, what would be this one? Oh, this one? Why? Or I'll have a character, even down to one-off issues. I wouldn't necessarily mind that. I have characters that I know have serious potentials for stories that I'm not focused on right now. But say there's only so many hours in the day, someone wants to write that, and then I could use what they've come up with to come back into my own series. A dream come true. I would love that. And I love getting other eyes in my world and new perspectives. That character you do it as a throwaway, they have a whole vision with that. Go for it, man.
Definitely. So getting back to the campaign for a second, you have 27 days to go. You already have 137 backers. So that's about 80%? 70, 80%?
75, I think.
So for anyone who's interested, it is almost there. So you are pretty much assured to get book.
Which is fine. I'm paying to get the book. But if you want all those other ideas I was describing and rambling about, the better this does, the more investment. This is all investment, right? The better this does, the more confident I can get with throwing new ideas your way.
Definitely. And for anyone who's interested, yes, you can get books 1 to 3, both in physical and digital copies. And I did not realize it was on Global Comics. I'll throw a link in the description later. But if you're not sure, you're on the fence, go check it out on Global Comics and see if it's up your alley. So where is it production wise, and when do you think you'll start shipping out books?
So I am the 15th page was just inked actually. Right before I went on stream, I just saw my artist he sends me thumbnails first. That way I could
Yeah.
we cut it. I got to go, okay, this works, this doesn't, and then we do a little critique, and then it's fine. So my artist is just sent me thumbnails for the next batch of pages, but he has 15 of them are solid inked. My colorist said that he's laid down for a couple of issues, but 5 of them have been colored. So we are a decent portion of the way through the book, and they are moving faster. So
Nice.
it looks like we're good to go. But yeah, to answer those questions, we are about 15 pages inked with more on the way, and 5 pages colored with more on the way.
Okay, nice. And when do you think you might start shipping?
My hope is to have it out by the end of the year.
Oh, okay. So potentially a Christmas gift for someone.
That's my hope. That's why I was like, all right, I want people to get it for Christmas at least. Oh, all right, that'll be a good deadline. So my hope is that's my hope, is to get it to people's hands Christmas, if not earlier, is my hope.
So if you're not a comic fan, maybe you know one, and maybe there's some kids in the family.
Yeah.
All right. So what aside from Phenomenova, what new comics are you excited about? Whether it's mainstream, indie, foreign.
I'm interested to check out, even though I'm a Claremont guy, I'm interested to see what John Byrne wants to do with the Elsewhere stuff.
Yes.
That I'm interested in. I'm liking Battle Beast. Yeah. What else? Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of.
Put you on the spot a little bit there.
No, I'm thinking because Dave Brink, I'm always interested in what he's doing. He does some great work, always. I'm interested to see what John's Longbox is doing.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with
Heroic Tales. That's the tough part, man, is when you're friends with someone, you're like, oh, please, man, it'd be good. Please let it be good. Phil, who's just in the chat, he is doing Western. I'm interested to see what he's doing there.
Nice.
Those are some of my favorites.
Very cool. All right. So for anyone who has not yet checked out Phenomenova on YouTube, pinned in the top of the chat is a link to it on Kickstarter down in the description. Over on Rumble, if you are that one person who is watching, it's in that description as well. And for anyone watching on X, I put that in the chat. So go check it out. You've got a little under a month left to back it.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, with the Kickstarter algorithm, they like momentum. So backing faster actually does, and you don't get charged till the end of the month. So the faster you back, that leads to more people. And like I said, the better it does, the more stuff you get. If you're like, I want that next Claremont style run, I'm trying to make it, man. And, I'm hoping that I can get it to your hands.
Nice. Yeah. Go check it out. So again, tomorrow night, I have Buzz Acevedo. We're going to talk about drawing aces.
Mm-hmm.
And next week, Chubby Funster. So
awesome.
Thanks for coming, Vaughn.
Chris, thanks for having me.
Hopefully we'll have you on again before too long.
I'd love to. Yeah, I know it's been a bit. It's been a minute. But no, I'm glad I came on. And we'll have to. Speaking of things that have taken a while, I apologize. We were going to do a stream on this, and then life happened.
Yes.
But I am now over 50 stories read, so I'm better prepared.
Nice. Yeah, I got my list.
All right, that's good. Yeah, I have mine too. I don't think anything's going to change, but the thing about his stuff is you wonder what you're thinking about more and more. Also, reading all of it too fast may have been kind of crazy, especially a lot of it audiobook, and give it the time to sit. But
yeah. So for anyone who couldn't see that, Vaughn was holding up H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah, John said, "Oh, if you're making a Lovecraft, reach out to him." I'm like, all right.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. Looking forward to it. So everyone, keep an eye out for that one of these days. All right. So good night, everyone. I'll see you all tomorrow.
See you.